This video is going to serve as a preview for the Ravens' visit to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars in Week 12. Ravens coming off of what a lot of us view as a disappointing win at home against the Carolina Panthers. And not to be alarmist, but I think this Jags team compares favorably to that Panthers team, to be honest with you. I don't rely on stats solely. I mean, they clearly do help paint a picture of each game before the game and afterwards. But I don't only rely on stats. Having said that, I'm going to quote a little bit to you. You know that I'm going to show a tremendous amount of video and try to point out at least two or three factors that I think could influence the game. So make no assumptions about this game. I will be honest with you. I'm not a betting person. I don't know what the over or under is in terms of points scored. Me personally, I would bet the under. Unless it's a ridiculously low number in the first place. Here's why. Offensively, the Ravens, yes, they're ninth in scoring in terms of offensive scoring per game, almost 25 a game, so that's a good number. That number appears to be trending down, and there is some evidence that that is just something that's going to happen each year. Although I think it's a little harsh to look at our offense last year, which some people do and some people have done in the offseason. I don't mean Ravens fans, and say, well, your offense does this, Lamar does that. Last year was a complete outlier in terms of our health, and in terms of Lamar's availability. Not surprising that the points scored per game went down after a certain point, but I think even before he went out, the offense was struggling. I'm talking about Cleveland, Miami, and then the road loss to Pittsburgh, which I think was the last game Lamar played in 2021 in terms of playing all four quarters. So 25 points per game, ninth in the league. The Jags defense is 13th in scoring defense, a little bit worse, a little bit lower than ours, 20.5 points per game allowed. But here's the key stat I want to bring up. In their 5 home games, the Jags are only allowing 14 points per game. So just to be clear about who those games are against. Colts, a 24-0 win. Texans, a 13-6 loss. Giants, a game they should have won. Broncos, a game they lost 21-17. And then the Raiders, a game they won 27-20. So in those 5 games, the Jags are 2-3, and they've only given up 14 points per game. So pretty impressive from a points per game allowed standpoint for the Jags defense at home. Other side, we're only really going to talk about the Jags offense to start here, but the other side of the ball, the Jags offense is 20th in scoring, 21.6 points per game overall. And the Ravens defense is 10th in scoring allowed at 19.9. So it looks similar. It's really not. The Ravens points per game allowed, pass yards per game allowed, everything is dropping quickly. And here's the biggest evidence for that. The Ravens have the number 1 ranked scoring defense in the NFL in the last 3 weeks at 12.7 points per game allowed. The only team close to that is the 49ers, I think, at 13.3 over the last 3 weeks. Certainly, when you look at the stats, you got to look at the whole season, but the Ravens defense is playing exponentially better than they even were in the home win over the Bengals in Week 5. I think it was Week 5. So I would bet the under unless the over-under is a certain low number that is designed to entice you to try to bet the over. So we're going to look at the Jags offense first. To be honest with you, I've got a checklist of things to go through. I think this is going to be at least a 40-minute preview. Usually the live streams last that long. I'm not able to live stream on Saturday morning this weekend, so I'm pre-recording this. If you hear me moving stuff around, I'm trying to get everything straight, so my apologies. All right, let's look at some of the film. Let's talk about certain elements to the Jaguars team and what the Ravens are going to face. First of all, they're really healthy. I think we've all seen that injury report pick, number 1. Number 2, I think that Trevor Lawrence reminds me of some of these other young quarterbacks in the NFL that kind of get pigeonholed immediately. Although I understand that there's some people who say, he's being given the benefit of the doubt. He's not enduring all the slights that other quarterbacks like ours had to endure for various reasons. But this play I want to show you, I think this shows you how he can stress a defense. Now, this is an incomplete pass. It's a scramble out to the right. throwing the ball downfield. Essentially, it's a throwaway, right? You may say, Coach, why are you showing me this? Okay, watch his helmet, pre-snap and then post-snap. So post-snap, once the ball is snapped, he's got a 4-man blitz here. And you can see he's looking to the left side. He does throw to the backside of trips often. So when I say the backside of trips, I mean the running back is set away from the trips in B-gun, and then the X receiver, in this case, I think is Jones, Marvin Jones. He's looking backside. The safety has spun down to cover up the running back, and they appear to have, pretty good initial coverage on the X. So he goes away from that. Plus, he's getting pressure from the left side. Scrambles out of there. And the thing that I will say I like, even though I'm a Ravens fan, he can make plays with his feet. He's done so, and I will show you some of them here today. Number one. Number two, as he's making plays with his feet, he's usually looking downfield. I think he's thinking about this throw here, but he has this defender who's kind of like in a gray area, meaning he's between these two defenders. Great job by this defender, staying at the bottom of the numbers, not getting too far towards the sideline, opening this route up, or the inverse of that, getting too far into the middle of the field, and then opening it up for this guy to come back to the football. It's an incomplete pass. I just think that it shows you that, at least in certain situations, like this one against Denver, where there's not initial pressure, he can stress the entire width of the field, because you look at his initial read was over here, or reads were over here. Then he came back to this side as he was scrambling out, was able to make it all the way to the sideline. Now, having said that, why is he able to make it all the way to the sideline? Watch the rush style. The edge rusher dropped out, and they did something that the Ravens and a lot of other teams do. We bring an inside linebacker to substitute as that fourth rusher. There is no edge rush. There's no edge rush to his right. Bad idea against a right-handed quarterback to not have anyone blitzing off the edge or anyone rushing outside of the tackle in what is the C gap. They didn't lose contain. He didn't get outside. I'm not saying that it was a big play, that he's going to be able to make big plays with his feet against us. I'm just using it to illustrate to you that he can threaten the field, the horizontal width of the field, with his athleticism, with his ability to make reads. I know that the numbers aren't, fantastic so far this year. All right, so we got a 3rd and 4 against the Raiders. Another example of his ability to scramble. It's a bunch formation out of 11 personnel. Show you a couple examples of these plays. So it's not like we can abandon our rush lanes. Again, what happens here, though? Same thing as the last play. Remember that quote by Ray Lewis, let the edge rushers rush, let the cover guys cover? This is Chandler Jones. The Hall of Fame career. He's not playing great for the Raiders this year. He's dropping out of there. There is pressure from this side. Give Lawrence credit. He's got the athleticism to escape it. The edge rusher, who should be there, this is like a mirror image almost of the previous play against the Broncos. Remember, there was pressure from the left side. There was no contained player over here, so he scrambled out in that direction. My point is, we got to be disciplined with our pass rush lanes, and we've got to not try to get cute defensively. I think we're past cute. I think we're way past cute in terms of how we call the game, in terms of how we approach it. You guys let me know what you think of that thought. All right. Another element to their game is zone read. Because of the athleticism that he has, he's not a great athlete as a quarterback in the NFL, but he's athletic enough to do this. And this, I've condensed these down. I'm not showing you every iteration of these plays. The Raiders are not playing this well. Max Crosby is doing the same thing he did to the Ravens in week 1 of 2021. He's running down the line of scrimmage, trying to make a little bit of a gray read. This inside linebacker, I think, is Perryman, pretty good player, should be gap exchanging it to take the quarterback. He's not. They're both playing running back, and there's just no one to contain the quarterback. Easy 9-yard gain on a 2nd and 10. Am I saying that he's going to be able to do these things against the Ravens? No, I don't think that this is a primary element of their offense. I think it is designed to be used very little in a manner that doesn't ask the defense to compensate for it all the time. So a couple of things that I've noticed. Number one, I do not think this tight end, Evan Ingram, is a fantastic run blocker. Generally, when they're going trips closed, so there's trips here, and closed means tight end backside. Generally, to me, this is a pass formation. I'm going to go over run-pass ratios with you guys in a little while. I'm not sure the level of detail that people like. If you enjoy the data that I give you and rely on it, I've only got, I think, 93 or 94 offensive plays for the Jags. Just don't have the time to be able to accurately label and then summarize for you more than that. It's generally become a mid to late week thing after creating content for the Ravens. But look for that during the game. How often are they running to his side when he's down here as an inline tight end? It doesn't seem like much to me, but again, I only have 94, 95, somewhere, maybe 97 plays overall, which is clearly, probably 12 to 14% of the total overall plays they've run this year. Same formation, similar, I should say. Tight end nobody. This is a wham trap play. Don't have the end zone angle on a lot of these. It's an 11-yard gain by Travis Etienne, who's quick, has a real burst, and he's a little more physical than people give him credit, as you can see here. I mean, the Broncos got a pretty good defense. So when we say wham trap, what do we mean? So you have a 3 technique here, doesn't have his hand in the ground yet. What they're going to do is they're going to leave him unblocked. And this tight end, who it's kind of a giveaway, right? Look at how his feet are in line with the right tackle. There's usually a reason for that, to run a hide concept to the other side or split zone, something like that. In this case, it's to trap block a D tackle so that they can release linemen up to the second level. That's what a trap concept does. It allows the first level of your O-line to release up to the second level because you're trapping a D tackle, normally a 3 technique. You can run midline against a 3 technique, or a 2 or even 2-eye sometimes. But generally, you're talking about trapping a 3 technique, maybe a 5. You don't see trap a whole lot in the NFL these days, and you don't see wham trap. Actually, the Ravens have run it twice this year. I think I've got wham twice for the Ravens. All right, how often do they run trap? There's another example of it. I think this is a trap play where the running back reads it and doesn't go to the hole. Now, some could say this is F counter. All right, and that, I understand that. F counter is where you're pulling the guard, and then the H-back is wrapping. But when you do that, you're generally going to be kicking an edge player. Like I think this is Carlos Dunlap up here, who's not having a bad season for the Chiefs at all. Really cool to see veterans hang around and get one more shot at glory. But that's not who they're kicking out. That's not who's unblocked. I think this D tackle here is the guy who's unblocked. You can let me know. He's being trapped by the left guard. I've got a trap concept 3 times by the Jags, like I said, in 94, 95, 97 plays, something like that. So I feel like that's significant. If they've run it 3 times according to the plays that I have in our database and saved and labeled, then my guess is they probably run it another 6, 8, 10 times this year. So trap, rarely seen in the NFL, rarely seen in college. Now, in this case, the running back doesn't follow the trap block, nor does he follow the H-back, the tight end. He bounces it back here. Just good vision. He's got a burst, you can see. I think what do you think? Do you think their offense presents more challenges for the Ravens than their defense? I would be okay with either answer for real, guys, because I feel like with our health on the offensive side of the ball, obviously Bateman's out. He was a big part of our plans for the year. Robinson did practice, I think, twice this week. Duve, I think, did practice yesterday. I'm recording this on Friday, so I'm referring to Friday as yesterday. Likely is questionable. Andrews is still dealing with an injury. Etienne is, talented, and they do have some talented guys on offense. I feel like, given our health on our offense, I feel like their defense probably presents the bigger threat. But, I might be wrong there. All right, we'll move on to some pass plays. Christian Kirk lines up everywhere. They run him all over the place in motion. They use him in this is a play-action levels concept. Big gain of 25. They do like to run, people call it wide zone, whatever. It's just sweep track. They do run wide zone where they're pulling people laterally. They're moving the line laterally, or sometimes they're pin pull. I think I'll show you one of those in this first initial cut up. Play action off that wide zone or sweep look, and then levels. The tight end, Ingram, is a pretty talented guy. I feel like he's more of a pass receiver to me, and I'll show that some plays to you to hopefully illustrate that. I'm going to try to move this pace up a little bit. I didn't mean for this first segment to last so long. Another play action to Kirk on a 1st and 10. I've only seen this like deep crossers concept. Some people will call it sail because this receiver to the downside is running the post, but it's later. To me, he's just trying to get in the way and keep this corner from reacting to the deep over. I mean, I don't feel like they're going to throw it to this hardly at all. They're just trying to hold that corner and then the safety in the middle of the field to get it to Kirk. And it ends up being another 24-yard gain against the Chiefs. This, to me, is their main concept. I shouldn't say their main concept. It's one of their main concepts. I will show you, I think, two examples of this play here. And then, again, at the end, I'll show you 4 examples of it. So you're getting a drag, a flare, and then sometimes you get a post corner. Sometimes you get, in this case, I think you get a sit, curl, whatever. Sometimes you'll get, a deeper out route. But this is one of the core elements, if you ask me, is the drag coming from the opposite side of the running back, almost like mesh, right? We would say this is half of mesh. So there's your mesh right there. And the guy who you've heard me say it many times, the guy who's often open is the guy who's running the drag from the opposite side of the running back because it usually clears out this space right in here. So this is like half of mesh, and this is a core element of their pass game, if you ask me. The guy who's open, is obviously right there. And he gets it to him late. It's Zay Jones. They've got 2 Joneses, Zay Jones and Marvin Jones. Maybe that's actually Marvin Jones. My bad. I mislabeled that. Again, same concept. You get a drag, a flare, and I think this time it's a dig. And it's Marvin Jones again, but Lawrence scrambles. I mean, look, he looks like he's shot out of a cannon there. So here's the running back, going to flare it out. I think you're getting a dig here by Marvin Jones, and then a drag from the opposite side. So when you get bunched tomorrow, excuse me. Yeah, I guess it is. I guess I need to say tomorrow. I'm recording this Friday night. You guys are watching it Saturday morning. When you get bunch tomorrow at the game, think about watching the running back. If the running back flares out, you're generally going to get a drag from the other side. And like I said, something here that looks like this, and occasionally it'll look like that. So it'll end up looking like flood. Lawrence isn't happy with whatever he sees, takes off running. I feel like he's pretty athletic. I mean, I'm only showing you the best of the scrambles. I'm not showing you all of them. But to me, seems like he's pretty athletic. They get kind of tricky sometimes. A little slot reverse off of a speed option look. Kind of a unique play. I like it. I'd like to see the Ravens incorporate it. So how did they get into it? So the back is going to cross Trevor Lawrence's face, and then he's going to go lead block. The guy in motion, Kirk, is going to go return back here, and they're going to run speed option with Lawrence and Kirk. We're making it look like he could pitch it to Kirk. But anybody who's ever played an option system knows you get something like this, the reverse is going to go between the quarterback and the pitch man. Cool play. I think you get a hold down here on one side against Simmons, 31, not called on Marvin Jones. Cool play. All right, so there's just a little primer on some of their stuff that they run that I think is a little unique. Let's get into the personnel groups. Whenever I show up a picture like that, it's usually to switch over to a different playlist. So this playlist is going to be about 11 personnel. Here's the data. I don't know if you guys like seeing data, or like hearing about it. I've got 55 plays out of 11 personnel. 16 of them are run, and 39 are pass. I feel like that's pretty low in terms of run-pass ratio. When you get 11 personnel in the game and you're watching the game, I think you should consider that a pass formation. I'll show you 4 plays from 11 personnel, and I'll show you the formations that I think are either most dangerous or at least notable to me. So Ingram is the tight end at 11 personnel. He looks like a receiver. He looks like a receiver to me in this offense. Quick, has a burst, catches the ball extremely well. To me, catches the ball like a receiver, like someone who's played in a spread system. I don't pretend to know his background, to be honest with you. But you can see it's a design screen to Ingram. You got a blocker. They're just outflanking him. Why do I bring this up? Well, the Ravens have had trouble with screens before. We have. As we saw last week in the Panthers game, though, when we had Kyle Hamilton out here to trips and Roquan Smith to trips, it was not a problem. Those guys either A, identifying it pre-snap, or B, responding to it at the correct angles. We didn't have any trouble. Well, Kyle Hamilton's not playing Sunday. I don't think he's playing, and I don't think he should. I think Ingram is a big part of their offense, whether they're in 11 personnel. This actually happens to be 12 personnel. I think I see 2 tight ends there. It's another screen. This one to Ingram. I think this is something they trust and want to do. There is a penalty out here on the Jags. It's a loss of 10. The next play is a 2nd and 15 because it's a 2nd and 5. You got a D end here that seems to recognize something. Not sure what he recognizes, but he knows the play that's coming. For whatever reason, he doesn't react to it, though. He's following his key, which is the tackle. His key is stepping down, so he's stepping down. That's a fundamental element of football, block down, step down. But when you know the play, you got to react to it. In this case, they give up a big play that gets called back for a penalty. 11 personnel again. There's the bunch. Zay Jones is backside. It's a touchdown pass to Ingram. Again, watch him run his route. He is the point man. So I call this Y fade. Sometimes he sets up as the backside guy. To me, Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Ingram, big targets, talented guys, all catch the ball very well. I would compare Ingram to Likely from the standpoint of I would consider him a receiver, a slot receiver, a big slot. I like him. Looks very athletic. A little quicker than Likely, I would say. I'm not sure on the size who's bigger. Likely looks a little more bulky, if you ask me. Great ball by Trevor Lawrence. Easy touchdown. Last play out of 11 personnel. This is the first play. My apologies. Let me reiterate the stats or the data for you. 55 plays in 11 personnel, 16 run, 39 pass, so pretty heavily weighted towards the pass out of 11 personnel. All right, I have very little data on 12 personnel, to be honest with you, but I'm going to show you some of the formations and real briefly talk about the data. I got 20 plays out of 12 personnel, 13 run, and 7 pass. I'm sure that would even out and become more balanced if I had a larger sample size of data. If it ever comes to the point where I'm able to do this full time, then you can hopefully rely on me to give you a higher percentage of the opposing team's plays in terms of the data I present. I don't want to rely on someone else's data. I want to rely on my own eyes. So 12 personnel, 20 plays, 13 runs, 7 pass. Here's a classic 12 personnel formation. Ace, quarterback is an under center. There's Lawrence. So one tight end here, I think, is Ingram. And the other tight end here is 85. I forget his name. And you get stretch reverse. So they're going to run the reverse with Kirk against the grain of the stretch. Huge gain. 15-yard gain for Etienne. You see the burst. He's got a lot of moves. I mean, the Broncos got great pursuit, don't get me wrong, but they're a quarters split field coverage team, and that a lot of that is predicated on being soft alignment-wise so that you're not giving away your coverage pre-snap, and I understand the benefits to that. There are times, however, where these compressed or condensed edges can give that problems. Watch this linebacker here. On the reverse look by Kirk, watch what that linebacker does. It's a Jewel. I can't remember his name. goes against the grain. So there's a lot that I think the Ravens defense has to be prepped for. There's a lot that I'm trying to present to you, to be honest with you. Kind of ambitious. All right, 12 personnel, well, another formation, as this last one was called ace. It's an even 2x2 set. 2 people to the left of the left tackle, 2 people to the right of the right tackle, and then the quarterback under center with the running back straight behind. That's what I designate as ace. This is different. This is, again, a 2x2, but that was 12 personnel with 2 tight ends to the left, 2 receivers to the right. What they're trying to do is attack to the – this is genius, and everybody does this to different extent. So they're trying to out-formation you. You got 2 tight ends to the boundary and the running back to the boundary. And then you got 2 receivers to the field. So they're relying on the fact that you're going to put a nickel or strong safety here. That's Abrams, who's since been released, and then the free safety to the field. So they're trying to get it to where they're playing 9 on 8 in that area here, especially down to the boundary. So wheel sit to the top side, trying to throw it over top of Abram. And they do so. I feel like this is a ball that he could have reacted to a little quicker. When I say wheel sit, it's also a curl. So you get a curl here, and then this is the slot receiver sitting down. I'll pull this back so you can see it again. Looks like a wheel, and then he's going to sit it down over top of the curl flat defender. Trevor Lawrence trusts his guy to throw it up top, throws it over Abrams' head. I feel like that ball should have been challenged better by number 24. Twin wing. That's one of the core 12 personnel formations. All right, here's another one. Tray wing. So you have 2 tight ends and the Z receiver pretty close to the outside tight end. So you're basically creating a tight end wing and then a third offensive player there, the receiver. That's why we would call it tray. Watch what Chandler Jones does on this sweep. I guess some people are going to call this wide zone. It's annoying to me when we come up with new names for things when there's already a name for it. Chandler Jones can still play, especially when he's matched up against someone like this. Ingram, at the NFL level, everyone is so good, particularly starters on defense. You can't have any deficiencies, and you can see he's getting physically dominated there. Now, in college or against bums like me, Evan Ingram would be a dominant blocker. At this point in time, doesn't look like he is. Chandler Jones doing a great job setting the edge. You get a loss of 6, even though he doesn't finish the play. I think that's Blake Martinez that finishes the play, who's now retired. So you got 2 formations so far, or 3 formations so far out of 12 personnel. Ace, which is the one you see here. Twin wing, 2 tight ends to one side, 2 receivers to the other. And then tray wing, 2 tight ends and a receiver to the same side. That's 12 personnel formations. All right, last offensive set of plays to go over. I've actually already touched on some of these. Conceptually, I find some similarities in what they do with certain pass concepts. I'm going to run this one time. This is a wheel follow. So I didn't show you this earlier. It's 11 personnel. Remember I had said wherever the running back is, you're generally going to get a drag from the opposite side. Watch the routes you get here from the top side. You're getting a drag to the side where the running back releases. That's Hasty, who looks pretty quick to me, good hands. Haven't seen him break a ton of tackles, but you're getting a drag from the receiver up top, Kirk. And then I think you're getting a follow route. And here's what I mean by follow route. Generally, we've been getting something like this from the side of the running back. They're running a wheel follow. So it's like the second guy through the zone. All right, here's the wheel carrying this safety, Simmons. I hate some of the Broncos coverages. I'm just going to be honest with you. You're getting a wheel to carry that Simmons, presumably would have to carry. And then they're throwing it to the running back on the follow part of it. And you simultaneously have the drag here. unique play. You don't see a lot of people run um, two receivers through the same zone, something the Ravens used to do a lot in 2019. This is the same play I showed you a little while ago. This is the wheel sit. But why am I pointing it out to you? You got the running back on this side. I do not think you're going to get a drag from a slot. This guy's too wide to run that drag. So if you're looking for something to look for or try to notice pre-snap, wherever the running back is, look at the receivers on the other side. If you've got something like this, compression, closer aligned receivers opposite the running back, I think it's entirely possible that you're going to get a drag, a flare, and something like this, which is somewhat similar to what we get here. They're running the clear out with the wheel. Hopefully what I'm saying is making sense. And again, I haven't watched every snap for the Jags this year, so I don't pretend to know that those tendencies hold over the course of, let's say they run 70 offensive plays per game. They've played 11 games, so you're looking at 777 pass plays. And again, to recap on one of their favorite pass concepts that's somewhat unusual. Showed you this one earlier. Look at the compression, the closely aligned receivers opposite the running back. So this, to me, is how you're going to be able to tell pre-snap whether you're going to get that drag and then the flare by the running back. This looks like a structural, a foundational element to their pass game that goes across formations. I showed you this one earlier too. You got a tightly aligned bunch set to the bottom side. Running back over here. Again, those are the circumstances that I think tell you that you might be getting that concept, and then something over to that side. All right, let's move on a little bit. I want to talk about their defense. I think it's important to do so. They've got pieces. I talked about they've only allowed 14 points per game in their 5 home games. Of course, they're only 2-3. All right. I really, truly believe they should have won that Giants game. They get tackled at the 1 to finish the game. Etienne, I believe, fumbled inside the 5 going into score earlier in the second half. Very easily could have won that game. 14 points per game allowed in their 5 home games. Clearly, the big piece that everyone talks about is Trayvon Walker, but they've got other guys. Foye Oluokun is a really underrated inside linebacker. I think we need to be aware of his ability level, his ability to shed blocks, get after the football. Is he great in pass coverage? I don't know. I don't know. I know that he's exceptional at run fits. I know that he's very aware, and him and Devin Lloyd work well together. I also know Foye Oluokun has 95 tackles already after 192 last year for Atlanta. How many of those 192 tackles in Atlanta were on 5, 6, 7-yard gains? I don't know. I don't care. How many humans can say they made 192 tackles in an NFL season? I think he's a rare and unique player. I think he's extremely underrated. And to me, Foye Oluokun looks like a guy who could start for a Super Bowl winning defense if surrounded by 4 or 5 or 6 really high-level players. In this case, I think he's surrounded by 2 or 3 in Jacksonville. And if you're a Jacksonville fan, please don't take offense to that. I actually have done multiple videos this year on the Jags defense in the first 5 or 6 weeks. So Devin Lloyd, however, is the inside linebacker that probably gets talked about the most nationally. I would be interested to hear a Jags fan's perspective on him versus Oluokun. I think they both are, I don't want to use the word small. They are quick, and they are physical enough to get the job done against NFL offensive linemen. Watch Devin Lloyd take on this block here. Knock the offensive lineman out of the way. Now, Trayvon Walker's playing a role in this too. Trayvon Walker's lined up in this tight 5 here. Forgive me, I didn't know which marker I had set up. He's in this tight 5 here, slamming B-gap, taking on the guard. Watch him spin out of this and get involved in a tackle with Devin Lloyd. I'm going to preview the different personnel in their front 6 or 7. I'm not going to go over in detail a ton of their coverages. I've heard people say, they play this coverage, they play that one. I have not had the time to go through and develop all of that, to be honest with you. Watch Oluokun and compare how he takes on this block and deals with this play versus how Devin Lloyd did. I see a lot of similarities in those two guys. I mean, he's given up a lot of size and mass to this offensive lineman he's dealing with. He's getting to the side that he's responsible for, sheds the block. And again, Trayvon Walker is involved in this. I'm not saying that Foye Oluokun is the only guy who makes the tackle. Trayvon Walker sometimes is going to be lined up inside of the tight end in what we would call a 7 technique. If you're watching the game and you're trying to figure out why, it's normally going to be when there's a strong safety or a nickel or in some cases a corner rolled up outside of him who's responsible for D gap. Walker's responsible for C gap. The 3 technique is responsible for B gap. Lloyd would be responsible for A gap, and then over here, the backside D tackle and linebacker Oluokun will be responsible for A and B, whatever game they're running. Smaller, quicker inside linebackers. Ravens have dealt with that concept, haven't always dealt with it well. I'm talking about like the Cleveland Browns. All right, Trayvon Walker, what do you say about him? This is one of 3 sacks, or maybe it's 3.5 or 4 that he has so far this year. This was his first in week 1 against Washington. He played great against Washington. I think he's played a whole lot better than people outside of Florida probably give and Georgia probably give him credit for. The numbers might not be there in terms of overall sacks. I think the impact is the physicality. I think the foundational element of their defense is working well together. Watch how Walker takes on this tight end, and then how Oluokun folds over the top, basically creating a gap exchange. Now, that happens naturally for an experienced linebacker. Like, we don't run through closed windows. We used to say, hey, if we're trying to rob somebody's house, we're not going to go through a locked window. We're going to look for an open window. Window certainly looks open right here, right? But Walker's going to condense this tight end down, and then Oluokun just folds over the top. Yeah, there's a pulling lineman to deal with. Walker's the guy who makes initial contact. I think they have great pursuit. I think they are very athletic up front. They look fast to me. I think they compare favorably to the Panthers' defense in terms of overall athleticism. Week 1, not sure if you know, Trayvon Walker had an interception and a sack. I don't think he has another interception this year. Were you to do a redraft? I know I saw something today, a tweet, like if there was a redraft, Ahmad Gardner would be the first pick. Well, me personally, yeah, I like Ahmad Gardner. He's my favorite player from the draft. But, I find it hard to pass up or say, I'm going to walk up and hand in the card that doesn't have Trayvon Walker's name on it. Difficult thing for me to say. Great awareness. I don't know what he sees. The only thing I can think that he must see is the running back's posture coming through here. So I'm talking about like this right here. I don't know what else he sees to make him aware that this is going to be a screen, but in any case, it's a pick that damn near ended up being a pick 6 were it not for a great effort by Carson Wentz. You'll get the end zone angle of the same play. Ravens got their hands full dealing with him. We're going to have to run some kick-out stuff at him to slow him down somewhat and hope that we're able to actually physically kick him out. He's a mountain from what I see. I haven't watched the Jaguars defense intently. In similar concept here, by the way, screen where he makes the tackle. I haven't watched the Jaguars defense intently in the last 3, 4, 5 weeks like I did the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season. Just haven't had time to do so. Again, awareness level, he understands they're not going to block me with a receiver legitimately. There must be something up with this play. I don't pretend to know as much about their defensive secondary. It is possible that maybe this is a game similar to the Panthers game last week where the front 6 or 7 for the Jags can deal with our run game, but we have an advantage in the pass game. That's possible. I'm not saying that, I know it to be true. I'm just speculating about whether it is true or not. We certainly need to throw more screens. The one call last week that Kenyon Drake dropped, maybe it was 3 to 4 inches, quote, overthrown. I don't really think so. The screen was there. Josh Allen's another guy. I think he had 10.5 sacks as a rookie, 7.5 last year. Only has 3 so far this year, but he's got 13 quarterback hits. Maybe it's 14 quarterback hits. Last year he only had 14 or 15. So, through 12 weeks, 11 weeks, he's got just as many quarterback hits as he had last year. So it's not like the production isn't there, the effort and the ability to impact the game. With us not having Ronnie Stanley, I think it's entirely possible that Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen give us, issues, and that's the Jags' answer to the question of, hey, are they going to be able to stop the run without opening themselves up to the pass? Now, if you're looking for some encouragement, what can we do? Occasionally, they have had trouble tackling, certainly in that home loss to the Texans where Pierce dominated. They're creating a 5-1 look here. So Aluakin is at Mike, and Devin Lloyd is walked up playing edge defender, 9 technique Sam, and they're creating a bear front. So you got a 3, and then a 0 nose. That's a bear. Some people will call it eagle, whatever. Bear, technically a bear front. There should be a 7 technique and a 9 technique to the tight end side, but that's a video for another day. They have had trouble, or at least they did this game, but they have great effort. Pierce has unbelievable effort. Clearly, he's the guy who deserves credit here, but watch the pursuit. No one buys a ticket on this defense. That's the one thing I will say to you as a Ravens fan. If we're going to go down to Jacksonville and we're going to bully this team, we're going to have to bully them for, whatever the average football play is, 7 seconds, 8 seconds. We're going to have to do that 40, 45, 50 times. I think it's a challenge, for real. Great effort by these guys. It surprised me when Pierce was able to run the ball on them like this and finish them off. I think the final score was 13-6. They give great effort. They appear to be fast and athletic to me. They don't have any health concerns. I forget who it was. I think it was Tanja Bowman said, Coach, you're kind of scaring me. I don't mean to do that. Through the training, that might be the wrong word, through the way that I was taught to watch film and the mistakes that I made, in terms of certain times being too judgy on players we were getting ready to play, I have to look at what people can do. Yes, we have some clear evidence here of a physical running back and a physical team finishing them off. But it was only 13-6. And that score right there, I think, happened in the fourth quarter. So it's not like the Texans went in there and bullied them for 60 minutes. I think they bullied them for periods of that 60 minutes. And I think Pierce took over on 2 or 3 drives generally. Look, you guys let me know what you think of some of my thoughts here. I can't possibly produce a 2-hour complete in-depth preview of all elements to their team. I think Lawrence is more athletic than he's given credit for. He might be inconsistent throwing the ball. I don't pretend to be able to judge that for you. You can look at the stats for yourself, on one level. But I would caution you against misjudging him. I think their receivers and their tight ends are big and physical guys. I don't know that they have a physical O-line. It just doesn't seem like it to me. It doesn't seem like it. I'm not a huge fan of their wide zone sweep plays with Etienne, who clearly has the speed and the agility to make it work. Those things don't seem as successful in the small sample size that I have, once again, recognizing that I only have, around 95 plays categorized and labeled completely in the database. If you're interested in being a part of any of the labeling or organization of it, let me know. Because it does become a chore. It does become difficult. I want to get 4 or 5 games completely labeled for each team for a lot of reasons. Number one, it gives the data more validity, hopefully. Number two, it gives me more plays to see and hopefully present to you and avoid showing you plays that the NFL has used on Baldy's breakdowns and stuff like that. Because once I show a play that they have used, then the video is demonetized and I have to edit it to make any money off of this undertaking in terms of this video. Just so you know, that's not being a victim, because I don't believe in victim mentality, but to have more plays at my disposal to use is a good thing, because then I can use 3 or 4 examples of one concept without using the same plays that Baldy's breakdown says he used. Hopefully that makes sense. So if there was anyone that wanted to help with it, let me know. Because as the season gets on and as the season gets deeper and hopefully we play 3 or 4 games in the playoffs, there's going to be a whole hell of a lot of work to do and labeling. And I would enjoy and there are people in the Discord who help a lot, Tyrod, Frank, and others. If there was anyone who wanted to be trained on how to do it, just let me know, because the structure and the foundation is there, or the canvas is there to paint on. Let me put it that way. So let me know what you guys think of the Jags team. The way that I've presented it, of course, admittedly, is incomplete. But I'm recognizing that they do have talent on offense and defense. I think right now their defense probably presents a bigger threat for us. If you just look at the way our defense is playing lately and the health of our defense, I do think that missing Kyle Hamilton is a big factor, and I don't want him to play. For real, I don't. Not sure the nature of it. To me, it looked like an impact, like a bruise or something, maybe a bone bruise at worst. And those are not fun to deal with. I had one myself. Let me know if you agree with that assessment, that their defense is the bigger threat to our team right now, even though we have, one of the top players in the league in Lamar Jackson. I think, if Gus Edwards doesn't play, which I know he practiced 2 days in a row full, and the health of our receivers, Robinson, Duvernay, even likely to a lesser extent, and the absence of Ronnie Stanley, who I'm glad is not playing. I wouldn't want to see him go out there and be compromised at all. Hope we don't play him until he's 100%. So appreciate you guys checking the video out. Let me know what you think of any of my thoughts. If anyone would be interested in helping with the database organization and or labeling, that would be amazing. Because as the season gets deeper and this Ravens team keeps stacking up wins like we're going to do, I think, on Sunday, there'll be more and more film to show, trying to provide you guys, the most in-depth previews that I can within the time constraints that I have. Appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. And if you really enjoyed, my preview here, please consider sharing on social media, because my Saturday morning live streams don't tend to generate as much revenue as some of the other videos that come out on Mondays and Tuesdays, after the Ravens win. Appreciate you guys' time.